You are on assignment.
Now, a behind-the-scenes look. Hello and welcome to On Assignment, bringing you the story behind the story. I'm Alex Villarreal.
And I'm Imran Siddiqui. We go first to the Indian capital, New Delhi, where a brutal attack has raised concerns about women's safety.
Lance Armstrong comes clean about his drug use, but he may not be out of hot water just yet.
Immigration is at the forefront of U.S. policy debates these days. Our reporter looks at one woman's story.
And we're going underwater again, this time with sharks.
On Assignment is next. Let's go. In New Delhi, 5 men are now on trial accused of the rape and murder of a 23-year-old Indian woman in mid-December. They're being tried in a new fast-track court created after the brutal crime triggered public demands for tougher laws for sexual assault.
Jan.25 has been covering this story for VOA, and she talked with me from Delhi about the case and the widespread reaction it has sparked.
I think, in a sense, this case became a call to arms for a young, middle-class, educated urban Indians who were really led these protests. They are infuriated with the government's failure to protect women. They are fed up of old attitudes to women. And, some sociologists are really calling it the tipping point of a deep-seated anger, not just with this horrific crime, but with the political class, which is seen as indifferent and insensitive to people's concerns for better, cleaner governance, for attention to issues such as women's safety.
Now let's talk about the government aspect of this. How satisfied are people with the government's response to rape cases and also the police response?
Well, generally, there are a lot of complaints that police are very insensitive to rape victims. Women say they are often asked humiliating and embarrassing questions. Questions have also been raised about the protocols of medical examinations of rape victims. And frankly, the conviction cases in rape cases are very, very low because we have a slow-moving justice system and it takes years for cases to be decided. In this particular case, of course, the government was it was business as usual, but once they realized there was deep anger on the streets, then they did wake up and they did promise a lot of action. The case, for example, is today been moved to a fast-track court. So we could get a verdict in about 2 months, which for India would be absolutely unprecedented. Cases go on for years, as I told you.
And since this gang rape occurred, we've also seen other reports of other alleged gang rapes, including one where the victim was killed and hung from a tree. Those are the reports. We haven't heard very much about these cases, though. So why is that? Why was it the initial case and then it seems like not as much news is coming out about these others?
Well, for one, India is a vast country. This particular case happened in the capital, New Delhi. So, of course, it gets a lot of attention. What happens in a rural area, for example, gets far less attention. There's less media there and it doesn't get followed up as quickly. So that makes a lot of difference. As you say, rape happens in India. I mean, there's one rape case is supposed to be reported every 20 minutes. But I think at the same time, we have to say that this particular case is making it possible for more cases to come into the limelight. More cases are being reported now. This was a subject which wasn't spoken about much in India, though everyone knows it exists. I mean, we have a National Family Health Survey which says that 1 in every 3 women is a victim of violence. It need not necessarily be sexual violence, but violence of some sort. There's a lot of sexual harassment in a city like Delhi, for example. In public transport, women have long complained of being touched and groped. But now I think after this, it is becoming easier for women to come out and talk about it.
And speaking about New Delhi in particular, New Delhi has been labeled India's rape capital. You yourself living there, is that something that you feel is tangible?
It is tangible in the sense that I think if you're going around Delhi, you will not see a woman alone walking the streets alone after it is dark. It's a given in India that women don't do that. I have a young daughter and I'm very careful when she's coming home that I stay in touch with her during her commute if it is late at night. I think women just have to be very careful. They do not go out alone at night and generally avoid public transport even sometimes at night.
And what about the general perception? In a lot of cases, people blame the victim.
Absolutely. I think this is a very sort of deep-seated cultural attitude. And it is also, in a sense, a clash of cultures that we are witnessing. You know, cities are modernizing rapidly. Women are dressed in modern clothes, but it is not something that a lot of men are able to take easily because there are these old-fashioned notions that women are the ones who dress provocatively, they bring it upon themselves, they should dress modestly, they should not be out late. And the subtext being the rape victims actually brings it upon herself. Of course, a lot of women activists point out that this is not true because rape is as prevalent in rural areas as in urban areas, which means it's really a deep-seated problem in mindsets and attitudes where women are discriminated against. It's a patriarchal society and where men are very much in control.
And again, our thanks to Anjana Pasricha, who reports for VOA from New Delhi. A sobering footnote now to Anjana's report. Last year, more than 600 rapes were reported in the Indian capital city. So far, only one person has been convicted.
We're taking a break now, but on the other side, VOA's Sunny Young joins us for a look at the latest twists and turns in the bizarre Lance Armstrong scandal. You're watching On Assignment. And now to Lance Armstrong, the 41-year-old cancer survivor who repeatedly denied doping allegations on his way to 7 Tour de France titles, but the truth is finally out. In a televised interview with Oprah, Armstrong admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs to boost his chances of winning the prestigious races. And joining me now is VOA sports reporter Sunny Young. Sunny, you've covered Armstrong such a long time. Is any of this surprise you?
Not really, Imran. These accusations of using drugs have plagued Armstrong for the better part of a decade. He's vehemently denied many years that he didn't use, that he didn't dope, even though members of his own team said he did. So in some ways, I think many Americans, many cycling fans feel it's just too little, too late with this public confession.
Okay, let's say that I'm a sports enthusiast and I just want to get into the mind of Lance. What is he trying to do here? I mean, he's on the record saying that I have never used these drugs, and now he's saying something else. What's going on in there? Is he trying to come back so that he can make some more money?
Part of it, Imran, he still wants to compete, but not in cycling. His interest now is the triathlon, cycling, swimming, and running. In terms of running, he's competed in the New York City Marathon. He would still like to compete. He'll never compete again in the Tour de France, but part of the confession is linked to the fact that he has been banned permanently from international competition, and he still wants to compete again. However, I think there's a lot of things that are hounding him even after this appearance on Oprah.
And some of the critics have said that this guy is 41 years old. I mean, do you think he can still compete?
I think he can. I mean, he ran a respectable New York City Marathon time.
That's true.
I think he ran 2:50 or something like that. In the triathlon, I don't know. I mean, that is an Olympic event, but again, he had his Olympic medal taken away from him in cycling. So I don't think he could compete at the Olympics the way his status is right now.
What about his allegations about the entire bike racing industry being tainted by drugs? Well, what's going on in there?
Well, that's one of the things he did tell Oprah, that he was just doing what everybody else did, that he was, trying to stay on the same playing field. And I agree totally. I mean, if they were to give the runner-up in any of those races that Lance won, they can't because all those guys doped. I mean, it was just a real bad era in cycling.
Okay, quickly, if you can, in 10 seconds, what's next from this guy?
He has to appear before the World Anti-Doping Agency and give a complete, everything he did in order to clear his name. That's one of the things he has to do. He also has legal issues right now.
VOA sports reporter Sunny Young, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Imran.
Thank you for coming in. We're taking a break now. When we return, the story of a woman fighting to stay in the United States. You're watching On Assignment.
The United States has dramatically increased what it now spends to protect its borders from illegal immigration. Immigration reform was a hot topic in the 2012 U.S. presidential campaign, and President Obama has pledged to address it in his second term.
But immigration is no easy topic for any country. VOA's Jeff Selden did a profile of one woman who has been in the U.S. for her entire adult life, but still faced deportation to Mexico. I talked with Jeff to get more on her story and the millions of others like her. Let's take a look.
Like so many in the United States, Claudia Hernandez wakes up every day, goes to work, and comes home to take care of her children. Only Hernandez is not a U.S. citizen.
Well, I came in when I was 13 years old to California, and I was, of course, illegal. And I was living in California for about, I'll say 20 years. And then I came to Maryland 10 years ago.
And after decades of living and working in the U.S., the law finally caught up with her. She was facing deportation.
Tell us a little bit about Claudia. How did you find her?
Well, it was difficult because a lot of people who come to this country and they don't come with documentation, they don't want to talk. There's a lot of fear right now that if they start talking, they could end up being turned over to immigration authorities and then they could be deported. We were lucky with Claudia. She's an interesting case. She had come over to this country at 13 years old, sneaking across the border from Mexico into California. And she eventually did get caught up by law enforcement, was threatened with deportation, but she was able to win her case, and now she's documented. And so she felt free to share her experiences and what it was like going through that process, the highs, the lows, and the uncertainty for a long time.
If I was going to be deported, then who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to see that my daughter goes to school every day, that she's healthy, that she's fine, that she eats, that where they're going to go to sleep?
Now, as a layman, specifically for our audience, international audience, what is going on at Capitol Hill? Because we hear about immigration reform, and then we hear about the study that came out with regards to the amount of money being spent on enforcement. Where do you think Capitol Hill is with regards to immigration reform?
One of the older obstacles has been a lot of people saying, look, let's first concentrate on enforcement and immigration enforcement before we do anything else. So the study that came out recently from the Migration Policy Institute may be putting that to rest and may be providing some momentum to move beyond that. What the Migration Policy Institute found, they looked at the budgets of federal agencies, U.S. agencies involved in immigration and immigration enforcement. With more money being spent on enforcement, deportations have more than doubled over the past decade, according to the Immigration Policy Center, a nonpartisan research group. Groups that help immigrants adjust in the U.S., saying there's more fallout. Jaime Ferrant is with AYUDA, which provides legal services to immigrants.
The enforcement factor does play a role, and what it more plays a role into is into migrants using smugglers and going into organized crime to seek assistance to cross the border.
Immigration is a very emotional issue. Whether you talk to people who tend to side with the immigrants who are coming in, legally or illegally, or whether you talk to people who are concerned about all the illegal immigrants crossing the border and are concerned about the rising level of violence along the border, it really hits home for a lot of people, and sometimes they approach it more with the emotion than with rational thought. And previous efforts at reform have stalled. But there seems to be a growing consensus in Congress that it may be time to try again. George Mason University professor David Hart hopes that's the case.
But we also need to talk about the numbers of people who should come to the country, what kinds of people we want to have immigrating to the country, and we haven't really been able to get to those issues because we've been hung up on the border.
What are the consequences if this is not resolved?
That's a big question. Basically, what you're looking at is a situation where all these questions, where all these issues that were companies, where people, where families are looking for resolution, they remain unresolved. And then you get back to people like Claudia Hernandez. She says she was fortunate. She got help. She was able to fight the deportation case against her and get legal status in this country and has hope of becoming a citizen.
The United States is my country.
But on the flip side, she could have lost. And if she lost, she gets sent back to Mexico. You have children who are born here, who, because they're born here, are U.S. citizens, and they stay. And nothing changes. And then there's still always going to be that incentive for somebody to come back illegally and sneak through.
Our thanks to VOA's Jeff Selden for that segment. A few weeks ago, we featured a couple of reports from longtime VOA producer Zulema Palacio. Zuli is now retired from the Voice of America, And we're missing her great work, aren't we?
Indeed, we are. But I did have the chance to sit down with her before she left to talk about some of her more unusual assignments, including her underwater shoots.
Yeah.
So it is off to the ocean that we go again, but this time in more dangerous waters. Let's take a look.
These divers have paid to watch Cristina Renato feed and pet sharks. The 11 kilos of metal mesh over her suit will offer some protection from a shark attack. The spectator divers watch as Cristina puts herself in the middle of the sharks' mealtime by feeding them frozen fish.
It's very hard to love a shark, especially after the name that these animals have. It's a fish, it's cold-blooded, you know, it bites and has sharp teeth. So by kissing it, I show them how much close and personal you can get, how comfortable they can be and how much they allow you to do. That's the reason why I cuddle them and I kiss them. I wouldn't say they really like it, but it definitely doesn't disturb them.
We went to the Bahamas, and there is a spot in the water in the Bahamas Islands that is called Shark Junction. And sharks, like, I don't know, maybe about 10 different species of sharks, they come in there by the dozens. And so we went there with this woman, Italian woman, who feeds them and gives a show for the divers to see it. And it's quite interesting because they all come, they know they're going to be fed with a tube of frozen fish by hand. So, but the feeder is the only one with a mesh. All of us have nothing to protect us. So it is.
And how close are you actually to the sharks?
Right there.
Wow.
Oh, right there. They go right by you, right by you. One of them, I had my camera. We were on our knees on the bottom. And so I was staying put with my camera, and a shark came right straight into my lens. Boom! Oh. And I was filming. I never stopped filming. And so he knocked me out and, you know, got in the floor, get back up, pick up the camera. And then later on, I asked the marine biologist, what was that? And he says, well, they are scavengers. They don't look for a fight. You had not moved. He was checking on you and see if you were dead. If you were dead, he will come back and munch on you. But if you were not dead, he's not willing to give the fight. So he left you alone.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine being under there. And also, you're not only having to think about where you are and where the sharks are, but also about filming. What are some of the different concerns that you have when you're shooting underwater versus a normal shoot?
Oh, there are big differences. Number one, there is no way to put a tripod. The second one is, there is no such a thing as zoom. The water is 800 times more solid than air. And so if you zoom in, all you're going to see is a fuzzy type of thing. So you either do a big wide shot or you come really close to the animal to get a close up.
That is incredible.
The other thing is at about 7 meters deep, there is no red. The red disappears because of the light diffraction. So you have to use either a red or filter, or then nowadays much easier to do a color correction in the computer.
Now you also did another sort of dangerous feat. You actually got married underwater.
It was the most fun wedding I
incredible.
have ever been.
I imagine it looked like so much fun.
We only had like 10 guests, everybody in a bathing suit, and everybody jumped in with us.
The wedding party, consisting of a few close friends, assembled on the sandy bottom. Zulema and Chris were married by Captain Slade Spencer. This will be his 120th wedding. Most of them performed here, beside the statue of Christ of the Abyss. As the wedding party assembles beside and above the statue, Captain Slate begins to read the vows, pointing with his finger. Then, Zulema and Chris sign, I do.
So why do you think it's important, why has it been important for you to bring these underwater stories to the viewers, VOA viewers?
You know, nearly 80% of our planet is water, is ocean. between throwing all the trash and all the plastics to acidity in the water, to global warming, the level of our oceans, of the life of the coral reefs is dramatic, is scary, and all the scientists and even the government has sound the alert about saying, you know, if we really kill our coral reefs, they are the birthplace of most of the sea life. If we kill those nurseries, it's going to be very serious.
Well, some incredible video from Zuli. I don't know that I would be that brave.
It's amazing. Every time I see her work, I'm amazed.
Yeah, well, again, Zulima Palacio was our environmental reporter. She just retired from VOA, and we are very much missing her.
That's for sure. Great video, as always, from Zuli. But our next story is from Los Angeles, where last year, working in his dad's auto parts store, a young boy built an arcade with rows of games that he made out of boxes.
This cardboard arcade caught the attention of a filmmaker who made a short movie about it and put it on the internet. What happened next not only changed this boy's life, but has affected children worldwide. Elizabeth Lee has the rest of this story.
In a working-class neighborhood of East Los Angeles, an auto parts store has become famous. George Monroy is the owner.
People fly in from all around the world. They take taxis here.
Those visitors don't come for auto parts. They're here to play in the arcade created by his son.
Hi, my name is Ken Monroy and I make arcade games.
In the summer of 2011, when he was 9, Kane created this arcade out of cardboard boxes in his father's store. Kane waited for a customer, but no one came to play until the last day before the beginning of school.
Actually, the last day of summer is the day he met Nirvan.
I needed a door handle for my '96 Corolla and just rolled into this auto parts store.
And Nirvan Malik, a filmmaker, became Kane's first official customer.
When I scored a point, he would crawl into the box and push out tickets from inside the box. And that's the point where my heart just kind of stopped, and I was brought back to when I was 9 and just reminded of being a kid.
Malik decided to make a short film on Kane's arcade. He posted it on the internet and set up a scholarship fund for Kane with the goal of raising $25,000.
The first day the film was online, it raised over $60,000. Got over 1 million views. After 5 days, there was $152,000 raised.
Kane's arcade also inspired the Imagination Foundation, which encourages creativity and entrepreneurship in children around the world. Children from Sri Lanka to Singapore and even Dubai have created cardboard creations inspired by Kane. An English-speaking group of mothers in Dubai invited children to build cardboard creations and share them at this party. Maeve Butler made this castle and took it to the party. George Monroy says Kane has changed. He used to stutter when he talked.
And now it's all gone away. He's not that shy little kid he was a year ago. He has changed 100%. He does a lot better in school. He has a lot more confidence.
Kane Monroy opens his arcade most weekends for anyone to stop by and play. Elizabeth Lee for VOA News, Los Angeles.
And it is that time again, the end of our show.
But it's just for this week, because we're coming back next week, and we'll be talking to a reporter in Mali for an in-depth look at the turbulent situation there.
We'll also hear about efforts in the U.S. to address mental health problems in the wake of a string of mass shootings.
And don't forget, you can watch all of our episodes, the full programs and clips at voanews.com and on our Facebook and YouTube page.
We're glad you could join us this week. We'll see you next time.